All right, so we were talking just seconds ago, before the break, about what law enforcement thinks of their confidential informants. Well, they look at them with disdain. They look at them with as a tool to be used and then discarded at the first available opportunity when they have no longer served their purpose, right? So when they're no longer feeding information, when they're no longer useful as a tool, they're disposed of. They're discarded. Or they're prosecuted and their substantial assistance is noted at their sentencing. Hey guys, don't you smell and see the danger? We are beyond political salvage at this time. And the reason that we're beyond political salvage is because we've allowed it to occur. We've refused to stand up and fight or find alternative solutions to the tyranny being presented to us. I promised yesterday, because I was going to do this Wi-Fi mesh network and how it can be a secure network that can be used by individuals. I promised that I would talk about this yesterday, and I didn't have enough time, so I pushed it off to today. So now we are going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about how we as a community can take action to fight back and at least defend ourselves. If not, and withhold data from the NSA and the surveillance state so that we don't become enemies of the state. And one of the things, or a couple of the things that we can do to try to preclude future abuse. So there's an article out there, and these are posted up on our Facebook page and our website. It's from there's two articles, actually. One is motherjones.com, which, frankly, I am no fan of Mother Jones for the most part. But this is an interesting article that outlines exactly what steps we can take as individuals to bypass this and how other nations are using it. And what it is it's taking the Wi-Fi networks that all of us have. You know, when you have a router in your house, that you have a DSL or a cable TV connection or however you get your internet, most modems today have a Wi-Fi capability. And that Wi-Fi is, allows that router, that little black box, to radiate a wireless signal around so that you don't actually have to be physically connected to that box in order to get internet with your laptop, as an example. So that router might sit next to your desktop, but you've got a laptop that you can sit on the kitchen table with and pick up a wireless signal and transmit the data that way. So what they're doing in other countries, and many other countries didn't do this for a security issue, they did this just because out of necessity to gain internet access at all, is they're interconnecting their Wi-Fi networks. And when they're interconnecting these networks, it allows network A to talk to networks B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Okay? And H then talks to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H also. And slowly but surely you can work your way across broad distances so that each of these are creating almost a micro-internet. Now, at some point, one of the networks has to be connected back to the internet in order to gain access to it. But even when it's not, if the mesh is big enough, as it can be in large cities and such, you don't really even need the internet, because you can send and communicate and message with another person who's over on the other side of the city and never actually have to get out onto the internet because you're traveling on your own inside enclosed network. Get it? So, you can have, a messaging platform that allows you and Bob to talk amongst yourselves and chat or even over the phone. In fact, a lot of these networks are being used for voice over IP communications where you dial Charlie and you actually talk on a phone that's a voice over IP phone. And it's not connected to the telephone network and it's not connected to the internet. You're just traversing on the mesh web network that is a secure and sealed network from the community. Now, of course, you have to be careful because if somebody does interject an internet aspect to it, then that network is open to surveillance by the Internet Authority, right? The NSA. So, I'm going to read you sections of this article because we've got 19 minutes and I want to make sure you understand the concept of it and how it can be worked. And then I want you to go watch a video. There's a video out there by a guy named Corbett. And it's really very, very interesting. It's called The Censorship Solution. You can search for it on YouTube. It's The Censorship Solution. Or you can just type it into a browser and find it there. But the goal is for you to watch this. It's about 50 minutes long. But I got to tell you, it's an important understanding that everyone should have about ways that we can develop an alternative communication system, because we now know that everything else that we're communicating with, all of the public side stuff, is being monitored. And what happens if they decide to just shut it all off? In our last segment, we talked about Grok Law and how she says that there is no more free speech collaboration available. That people can no longer communicate without everything that they say and do being monitored, stored for later use against them. Remember the phrase, everything you say can and will be used against you? Welcome to the world of 2013. Welcome to the new police state of the Democratic, with a K, Socialist Republic of the United States of America. Welcome to the new tyranny. Terrorism rained down from D.C. Welcome to the DHS, the new SS. Welcome to the NSA, the new Stasi secret police. Welcome to the world of enslavement. That's where you are. In Athens, Greece, they actually do a system like this. Not because they need it for security and privacy, but because it's actually fairly difficult to get internet connections in certain places. In Africa, they are bridging multiple villages together. And sometimes when you got a micro network of, let's say, a small city of 10 or 20 or, in the United States, it might be a small city of 5,000 or 3,000 or 10 or 25,000, and you want to bridge that to a larger city, you get something called a Yagi antenna, Y-A-G-I. And I want you to read these stories because they tell you where you can obtain special equipment that enables us to create these mesh networks. And I want everybody to start working on it. Now. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because if you're not working on it today, tomorrow it will be too late. So in Athens, Greece, they set up they link a set of rooftop Wi-Fi antennas to create a mesh, right? Think of a mesh like a fishnet, right? You got a knot here, but that knot is connected to other knots all around and so forth. It's a mesh. It's a sort of a bucket brigade that can pass along data and signals. It's actually faster than the internet that you pay for, by the way, because these routers connected together aren't limited by a DSL circuit that says, well, we can only give you 10 megabits of service, or a cable connection that says we can only give. They can do 54 megabits to each other. So router to router can talk far faster than anybody will sell you service for. They can even go faster than that, by the way. It depends on the router, right? So your router is your bottleneck, not the service that you purchase from the telephone company or the cable company or the satellite dish network provider. So they can send messages, video chat, and trade files without ever appearing on a regular internet. And it's a large group of people. The Athens Wireless Metropolitan Network has more than 1,000 members. And they are basically, all you got to do to join is put some, and it's free, you can install some additional equipment. Here's their quote. It's like a whole other web. It's our network, but it's also a playground. Indeed, the mesh has become a major social hub. There are blogs, discussion forums, a Craigslist knockoff for people to buy and sell products. They've held movie nights where one member streams a movie and hundreds tune in to watch. There's so much culture, there's so much local culture that they even program their own mini Google to help the people who are on there find stuff. So they've got like a little mini search engine they developed that enables, you to say, well, I want to find a copy of an article that's out there somewhere, and oh, Charlie's got that, so it goes over to Charlie's machine and grabs it and lets you see it, just like you would look on an internet search site, but that would take you to, Faux News or Communist News Network or MSLSD or something. Communities worldwide are doing this. And here's what the best part is. This is a quote. When you run your own network, nobody can shut it down. Ah, the real benefit. Because we already have the other internet, right? A lot of information out there, right? But they can shut it down anytime they want. Meshes have come together to resolve the problem, in many cases, just out of a function of necessity, because these people can't get to an internet service provider. In other words, some of these are isolated communities, and we've got plenty of that in the United States of America. How many folks out in the rural country don't have any way to get to the internet except maybe still dial-up? Many don't even have that. I mean, believe it or not, I don't know where you live, Watcher, but in lots of places in the rural United States, dial-up is still the only method of access to the internet. But with a setup like this, where you've got a mesh network, where basically all you need is a router and a Yagi antenna, and by the way, Yagi antennas can be as little as $30 or $40 and as much as a few hundred, but you can then point that to your farm neighbor who lives a mile down the road and connect to him, and he can point it down the road and connect, and so forth and so on. It's cheap. It's free to use. Costs nothing after you've invested in the one-time cost of the equipment, and it's private, and it's unstoppable. The community has an opportunity to do something that we don't have to be afraid will be usurped or taken away from us or monitored by the government. And so even some of these providers who are building these mesh networks are actually offering access to their network for something really low. Like, hey, give me $10 a month and I'll give you access to it. I've built this mesh network myself. I've connected all the different, antennas. I bought all the antennas. I bought all the routers. I've connected it all. And they're like a little mini ISP who's operating in the shadows. And so it's not hard to understand how we can use this to improve our own situations. One, I mean, if you live in an area where you don't have access to any internet at all, or you've got it only through dial-up, I'll be honest with you, the current modern internet is not much use to you. Because on dial-up, it takes so long for you to get information down that most of these graphic-laden websites, man, you click on a site and you want to go there, and you either got to shut the images off, or you may as well go have a sandwich and come back, and maybe the thing will be downloaded. I mean, the speed would just be astronomically slow. So, and I think I just saw a comment here. How do you spell it? Mesh, M-E-S-H, right? Mesh, like a mesh fishing net. Mesh networks, Wi-Fi mesh. That's what you want to search for. But I've already told you where it is. You can go out there and go to Mother Jones News and type in the search term mesh internet privacy. Okay? The other one is the Corbett report, and that is on YouTube, and it's called The Censorship Solution. And he actually shows you how to do this. So I'm telling you, and the subtopic of that is how to defeat CISPA once and for all. CISPA is the censorship thing on the web. So what I want you to do is I want our listeners to begin to put some serious thought to, one, educating yourselves about what a mesh network is. You do not have to be a technology expert, and you don't have to be a geek. All you have to do is read and watch, learn and listen, go and do some research, find some videos on YouTube about what you need to purchase and where and how and why. Go to your neighbors and start talking with your neighbors and say, hey, let's build our own little mesh network. And start with two, one neighbor on the left and one neighbor on the right, maybe a neighbor across the street or across town. And as you add more and more and more users, the system becomes more and more and more functional. There's open source software out there that won't cost you a dime. The router you already have is the router you'll probably use. You might have to install a little bit of software into it or maybe make a slight purchase difference. But we're talking about a one-time cost to build a network that going forward forever is free. Not only free of cost, but free of monitoring, free of surveillance, free of coercion, free of threats to shut it down. Wow. What's there to say no to? What's there to say, I'm going to talk about or think about this tomorrow? Do your homework now. Do your homework today. Don't put it off and then forget, because that's what'll happen. The baby starts crying, your boss calls, you got to get out there and mow the grass, you've got, you got to get the kid over to dancing school, you got some school board meeting, you got to rush off to work. Well, I get it. We have busy lives. For the record, by the way, isn't that part of our problem? So maybe you want to just start cutting back on some of the other activities that you do and start doing some real value to yourself and your family and your community. How do you do that? By educating yourself about what it takes to build a mesh network and implementing one. Be the first to start. In fact, you may even be able to make a business out of it. Now, I'm not suggesting that we do this as a business opportunity. You all know me well enough to know that I'm not one of these guys that's out there pitching crap. I do this show for free. Nobody pays me a dime. I'm under all kinds of threat. I'm under all kinds of pressure. I'm under all kinds of risk. I do this because we have to restore our country or we're going to lose it. And, at this point, I've been outspoken long enough and loud enough that I'll probably be one of the first to go. I mean, really, come on. When the giant purge comes, don't think they've got a dossier on me. Don't think they don't have a dossier on me that's as thick as the regulations for Obamacare. I mean, I openly post every show up on YouTube. So they got it all right there. I mean, come on. What more do they need, right? When they passed the new Sedition Act, guess who will be the first in the Roundup Patrol? You can avoid that. I don't recommend you do. I say if there's enough of us speaking up loudly, they can't imprison us all under the new sedition rule. Really. I mean, frankly, what I'd rather have is 10 million Americans who will get out there and be fearless. Since I don't have the influence and the voice and the wherewithal and the ability to influence 10 million people, I'm doing the best I can. You can help. You can participate. You can be a player and you can be in it. Even surreptitiously. Until enough of the movement grows where you feel you can step out of the shadows. I mean, Twain said it best. In the beginning, the patriot is scarce. He's a scarce man. Hated, despised, rebuked and ridiculed. But in the end, when his cause succeeds, the timid join him. For then it costs nothing to be a patriot. 56 guys signed that Declaration of Independence, and terrible things happened to them. Don't think for a moment that, They weren't aware of the consequences of their actions when they signed that. They were. They knew that they were putting their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honor on the line. In fact, they put it in writing. Talk about bold moves. Where's the bold American patriot today? Well, I don't know. I don't want to get on another list. I'm afraid I'm going to get on one of those lists, and they'll be watching me, and they'll be looking at my bank accounts, and I'm afraid of that. I don't want to be labeled as a troublemaker. That's not me. I'm not a troublemaker. I don't want to be out there in the front. I've got a family to worry about, and I got a job, and if my boss finds out, I'll be fired, and I don't want to write a letter to the paper because they're going to publish it and put my name in there, and my church, they don't approve of this, and all the people who go to the congregation with me, they don't like it when I talk like this. My minister, he says I shouldn't talk like this. I could lose my car. I might lose my house. I mean, they could foreclose on me if I stop paying taxes. They could seize my bank account and go after my 401k. What assurance am I going to have then? What am I going to do? What's my family going to do? Well, I hate to wake you up to the reality, but when the authoritarian fist of iron and steel closes upon you, all those arguments are moot. Because your car and your job and your farm and your house and your boat and your little toys are all going to be taken away from you. And your fear of being on a list will evaporate because you'll know that you're on a list with 314 million other Americans. And none of you are on the short, a.k.a. good list. That you are already on the list, that your dossier is already built, and they are devising ways to take it out of context to terminate you. Whether physically, or socially, or vocally, or any other way. And they will use whatever weapon is at their disposal to ensure that you are silenced, coerced, compromised, cowed, or frightened into silence or participation, that you become the confidential informant. And they will apply pressure against your pastor or your minister or your priest or your imam. The DHS already has a program out there to get clergy to keep their congregations silent and quiet and calm when civil unrest arrives. If the DHS already has tens of thousands of ministers who they're indoctrinating with this principle, does that mean that the DHS knows civil unrest is going to come? You bet your ass. And they're fomenting it. Not only do they know it's coming, they're the creators. Racial tension, immigration, those black people, them white people. Those darn rich people, they got everything. We got nothing. Them lowly scum poor people, boy, I tell you what, if it wasn't for them, the world would be great. That 1% up there, they're just torturing us. Free food and everything for everybody. Free education, free health care, free education. I want to go to college like everybody else. I'm an illegal alien, they're saying right now. They're parading outside hospitals. The news story is today, and they're demanding free organ transplants. Do you smell the division in the air? Do you know why? Because they're fomenting it. Why? Because division equals failure. Division equals loss. Division equals a divided group. And a divided group cannot defend themselves. Divide and conquer. one of the oldest ones in the book. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please join with us every day, 8 to 10 a.m. Central Time. You can capture this show on YouTube at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. You can find our Facebook page where we post up tons of stories every day at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And you can find every other program that we do and all about our program on americasvoicenow.org or org. Please visit us, share this with your friends, educate, awaken, inform, motivate, and activate. We're in dire times, folks. Join us tomorrow morning. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate you.